No, no internet connection. Okay. Actually, yeah, I thought I posted it. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right, as we look at this one here, we have three outputs, as I mentioned. One output is the solenoid, and the motor. We had two inputs, essentially, the full and the empty sensor and the start button, right? So if we go back to this here, we have one pump. You just use one pump. You don't need to use both pumps. You've got the high and the low sensors. You know, the low sensor would be the empty, that's there, and the high sensor. Now, I assume, looking at this here, that the low will be at the low level. If not, right there, we've got a pump here instead of the valve here, right there. So on this, if you use this one here, you've got, instead of the empty solenoid, just use the pump as your output, right there. And has anybody tried this and see whether it works right there? And it does work? Okay. So I'll give you an extra day if you want to use this one here. And as I said, I think my voice is actually going away too. So that there, I don't know what if I'm coming down with something or what, but I just don't at there. So there. As far as the final exam goes, let me just talk briefly about that, but I'll go into more detail about it right there. And I'm just going to tell you what the questions are, and I'll go into more detail on Thursday. Question 1 is basically dealing with robotics, and actually I might as well just go ahead and review for it now, since I've got it in my hand right there. Obviously, this is going to go back home and get shredded right there. So, but you know, question 1A, I'm going to be asking about different motors. Explain the different motors that are used. I went through a number of those early in the semester, right there. And part B is the types of mechanical joints, such as revolving. The various joints. C, I'm not going to tell you what that is, but it's an essay question of some type dealing with, when should you use robotics, what issues you would have if you switched an assembly line to robotics, or what issues you would have if you replace all the taxi drivers, or some type of essay question. Question 2 is, first off, that there is various you know, how do you control various motors out there? You know, in other words, you know, we talk about a couple of, you know, several of the different motors. 2C, you know, A and B is different, you know, I'm talking about different motors, you know, whether, you know, we're talking about out there. 2C, I'm just going to flat out tell you what it is, and that's an H-bridge problem. H-bridge. You know, I did a special lecture where I talked about the H-bridge and how it's connected, but you need to know how you would connect an H-bridge. Right there. And I'll just flat out, just kind of right there. If I do a quick search on H-bridges, it'll show, for example, an example of how you would wire one up right there. These are some examples of H-bridges. Something like this one right here might be one to look at. That there, now, to go in one direction, you would close switch 1 and 4. To go in the other direction, you would close switch 3 and 2. Right there. So that there. So again, if you just do a search, actually this is probably a pretty good one right here where they show how you would do an H-bridge right there. And the voltage right here, that would actually be a PWM signal in order to control the speed of the motor. So in other words, I'm just telling you flat out, and I do know I went back and covered it after I covered that there, after I wrote the test. I had a lecture where I talked about H-bridges. And as I said, I'm losing my voice relatively quickly there. So there. And D, I talked about, you know, open loop versus closed loop, you know, those types of things right there. You know, the difference when you would use one or the other. Question 3 deals with sensors, and actually another essay question you got there. So, you know, so it's actually question 2C and 2B are different types of essay type questions where you get into some of the social, economic issues dealing as we look at robotics. And what type of jobs are eliminated, what types of jobs are created when we do robotics. Question 4 is basically doing some simple PLC designs at there, and looking at a circuit and explaining to me what it does, how it works right there. But it's just all PLC type problems right there, and they're relatively straightforward, simple ones. And question 5. Oh, is this test A or B? Oh, this is at A, okay. They flipped it around. So, question 5 is looking at this final project, and maybe, you know, there's a couple of design problems that are more complex right there. And that's the test, 5 questions right there. So, I guess I don't really need to review again on Thursday because that was the review. Set there. There's 5 questions, and without handing this to you and letting you look at it, which I'm not going to, that there, you know, that more or less tells you that there. It's probably more than you get on most reviews for final exams, because that there. And if you talk to anybody who's had classes with me before, you know, what I tell you is going to be on the final exam is pretty much what I told you is going to be on the final exam. Now, question 5, I haven't necessarily told you exactly what they're going to be, other than one is going to be similar to the project. There's two parts to it that there, and the other one is one that you've never seen before. And that's kind of deliberate. It's not kind of deliberate. It's definitely deliberate to see how well you think that there. So my guess is that, and what's going on here? Did I break it? It doesn't really matter. That there, but question 5 is really geared to separate, the A students, from the, there it's, it's worth 20 points. Actually, to pass the course, you need what, 40 points on the final. I have in the past had students get down in the 20s and the teens, but that's relatively rare. Not there. In order to get below 40 on this final exam, you really have to, not have paid attention and not reviewed these questions, because they're exactly like what I told you there. And early on, and I'll probably go back and pull up some of the early slides on Thursday, because the robotics ones actually, and I don't know what this thing is doing. It's there, not that really matters up there, but the early slides, there, and I did give a midterm exam, right? That there, and that midterm exam actually looks a lot like the first 3 problems on the final exam. That there. So if you review the midterm, you probably have got 60% or 50% of the final exam right there. And and that's passing. That there. So that there. I almost always, as I said, have a couple of students, and part of it's because I don't take attendance very well and they just don't show up to class. And then they don't review the videos. They don't look at the slides that I've posted online at there, and they just kind of show up for the final exam and hope to pass it at there. But that's, again, that's out of a class of 40s. I think I got 44 in this class. I might have 2 that'll pull that stuff at there, which, there's not much I can say about that. I mean, if someone decides to do that, that's they've earned their F at there. So at there. So I'm going to go ahead and give you till tomorrow to do that midterm project. I think most of you have already submitted that, or close to, or I've had a number of them submitted. If you've already submitted it, don't worry about it. If you use the I/O sensor or panel simulator, that's perfectly fine. That there, I'm going to look at the, because the ladder diagram actually is the same. The ladder diagram is the same whether you use the simulator, which one was that, the batch simulator or this is, I can't remember which one this one is. I think it's the batch simulator right there. If you use the batch simulator and out there, or if you use the I/O simulator, the ladder diagram is exactly the same out there. The only difference is that your inputs and your outputs would be labeled differently. And when you did this with the batch simulator, did you actually get to see it fill up and drain? Okay. I never thought about using this one for the river one out there. Out there. So it just turns out that this one can be used, because this one particular one here, if you look at it, it's got a temperature sensor, it's got a heater. This one's actually for a much more complex problem right there. We didn't get into that. But if you use just one pump, the pump 1 and pump 3, the mixer for the motor, and IO and the high and the low sensors, that pretty much covers, and the start button over here, that pretty much covers everything that's in that one there. So, as I said, I don't necessarily feel very energetic. I can't believe my throat is going bad, so I must be coming down with something. Good thing tomorrow's a holiday, right? So, any questions? I said Thursday I'll probably go in a little bit more detail and go back and review, point out which slides from the beginning of the semester that there, because it has been a while. As I recall, back when I covered the first slides, I mentioned a number of items that would be on the final exam. So I'll just kind of go through and review a few of those out there. But next week I really don't have anything planned. I'll probably show up to answer any questions that anybody has out there. Review week, the week of, after the final, the last week of classes, I won't be here that week. Out there, I'll be out of town that particular week, so I'm going to kind of treat next week as review week. If anybody's got questions out there or want me to answer any particular questions out there. It's been an interesting course. You guys put up with me. It's my final course class for my career, although I shouldn't say that up. I'm probably going to be doing some online teaching out there and probably do a workshop here or there. I'm not done working 100%, but my energy level doesn't let me work full time anymore. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for right now. Out there. And my throat's not sore. It's just that I'm